Welcome back, citizens of Tamriel. Today, we're talking aquariums in the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I wasn't actually planning to do a build guide for this thing, but I've gotten so many requests for it that I decided to sit down and document it for you all. I'm Cal, and I'm a big fan of cobbling together fish tanks and aquariums like this in MMO housing. My first one was actually in Ultima Online decades ago, and this is my latest and greatest. Today, I'll be sharing a complete breakdown with you all, including my step-by-step building process and a complete furnishing list. All right, let's get into it. Here we are, back to the starting point. I'm going to be using the undo and redo here to sort of go through the process. This is something that I built over the course of several weeks, maybe even months actually. And if you go back to my original how to build an aquarium in ESO video, you'll see a different version of the aquarium here. It was much smaller. And when I got started on working on this house in earnest, I actually wanted to make one that was much bigger. And I felt like this space right here was really the space to do it. Let's go ahead and go. And I've tried to do this in an order that makes sense. So we'll talk about the pieces that I used and we'll talk about the build process. So once I realized I had the space to do a bigger aquarium and I really wanted to commit to it, felt like I needed to create a space here that was actually going to work for it. So that starts with this Elsewhere platform right here. So I'm essentially creating the canvas that I'm going to work on. And it was around the time that I was working out the space that I realized I should keep this portal open and then make it like you were shrinking down and going inside the aquarium itself. I originally had plans to do something a lot cooler in there, but I just ran out of furnishing slots. And if ZOS ever gives me another 100 slots or so, I'll probably really upgrade that. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. We've got our platform here, we've got our space, and this is hiding some of the steps leading up to the portal. So the next thing was to box it in, create the enclosure. And I'm using the Elsewhere walls here. These are rough, they're turned vertical. I use these all over the place. They're extremely useful. And you'll see that they're also blocking the light that's coming in from the sides, which is nice because one of the things that really amplifies the aquarium sort of experience or makes it feel more like an aquarium is that blue light. So we'll get there in a second. But we're adding a couple of walls here to hide this ugly seam up front, right? I didn't want to see that ugly seam. It's interesting that I have them so off center. I think that's because I had actually placed the moon gate, which is the last piece that you're going to see come in here. But I placed that first to kind of get a sense of the front of the aquarium. But it would have blocked our view here, so we're going to do it last. Next are these blue flame braziers. And there's actually 3 throughout the tank, only 2 that you can see right here. But those not only give you some of that blue light, but they also add some of those particle effects. So these are super useful. When these show up on the luxury vendor, you should buy them up. And they also sell pretty well because, you know, housing enthusiasts like me run out of them, want to do another aquarium, and you got to go buy them. But yeah, you can get these in Cold Harbor 1 week out of the year, 1 weekend out of the year. Stock up on them. You'll want them for your aquariums. Another good furnishing piece that you can use that's similar for the blue light, though, is the vampiric lamp. It's more of a bluish green, almost a teal color. And obviously it doesn't have that nice particle effect on it, but if you need more light, that's the way to get it. And then I was messing around with this moon temple pad. It also adds some effects, although it looks more like flame in most cases. In this case, I really like the blue light that it's giving off here. This is an antiquity, so you can get it for free if you want to go, farm one up. Next up, sand drift. These are actually a Crown Store exclusive, I believe, but you can buy them through the menu in game. So you don't need to wait for like the big pack, the big, aquarium pack or whatever to come up. You can just buy them one off. And I don't think they're super expensive. So if you have a few extra crowns from your ESO Plus subscription or whatever, you can pick a couple of those up, and it just helps to sort of give it a more natural appearance on the bottom floor. But you'll see here I'm going to use a lot of other furnishings to cover up the other seams here. I'm not too worried about things sticking out on the side because that's all going to be covered up. This next one is one that I really love using on aquariums. It's a little expensive and it's associated with an achievement in Somerset, but that is the small waterfall here. And I've actually got them turned upside down. So you get some nice rocks here, and you also get that nice little shimmer effect, right? So that's the waterfall coming up instead of going down. But you can buy those from the achievement vendor in Somerset. Next, I've got a stone idol I threw up here. That's another achievement furnishing. I believe that one is from Blackwood, but you could do anything here. obviously don't limit yourself to exactly what I'm doing. All right, next we've got kelp. And I believe pretty sure you can get all these from fishing. So if you don't want to fish them up, just check the guild traders. But these are great for sort of, again, covering up the bottom here, the bottom of our tank, hiding some of those ugly seams. I didn't need a ton for this one. Originally I had more, and I got a little creative as I started running out of furnishing slots and going back and removing kelp piles. Wedding blossoms. This is another one from the Lux vendor. Definitely look out for this and these other luminescent plants. They are great in fish tanks. They're great for lots of other purposes as well. These glowing mushrooms also work great for it. Again, just adding to the atmosphere, adding more sort of aquatic style plant life, but also things that are bringing more light into the tank. This is a really well lit tank, and that's important to, sort of sell it, right? Okay, now it's time to start covering things up. Covering up all the back of this. We want this to look more like a fish tank, more like an aquarium. I love these vines. You can get them real cheap, at least all the verdant ivy ones. They're for sale in Northern Elsewhere in Rimmen, and they're not associated with an achievement or anything like that. You can just go buy them. So I literally keep these stocked in my storage. I use them all of the time. They're great for covering up seams, covering up ugly messes, and great for these aquariums. So let's go ahead and throw some vines here. This piece is actually not a vine. That is a coral formation. And I want to say that one is a Crown Store exclusive. Let me actually check. Well, look it up. I'll look it up and I'll add a note here, in text scrolling across the top. Right, so more vines, more vines. You can see I'm just covering up seams here, covering up the wood, hiding things in the back, and just adding a little bit more atmosphere here. You can see the tank is really starting to fill up now. We've got a good backdrop and all the ugly seams are covered. So this is sort of where I like to get when I'm making an aquarium, making a fish tank in ESO housing. I like to get to this point where things are starting to come together. We've got sort of the background set and we've got the lighting in place and things are looking pretty good. And now is when I start adding more of the details. This bubbling chest, which won't bubble until I go activate it again, that is a Crown Store exclusive. It comes in the aquarium package. Same with this lilac anemone. Those are great. You can get similar ones. I think they're Vardenfell. They're either from the Vardenfell achievement vendor or they're on the luxury vendor, but you can get a different color of that doesn't require crowns. This is another Lux vendor item, the coral formation branching red. Murkmire snake plant, that one is from the luxury vendor as well. And one of the things that I like about this one and those anemones is that they add a little bit of motion to the tank, right? They're moving around. It makes it feel like you've got a little bit of a current in the tank. So very important. Kelp stock, I don't even remember where that one was at, but there's a few other kelp stocks in the tank. Oh, there it is right there, right in front of me. Just again, sort of filler, right? You could easily swap that out for vines or some other plant. Reed mace, that one is from the Lux vendor as well. And I like to get a nice variety here, almost like it's a coral shelf or something like that. Okay, another one. That's another Crown Store exclusive, but there are versions of it available in a different color. All right, coat of flowers. So this also helps with the lighting. I use these later on in the build process because they add little pops of light. And it's nice to light up areas that just didn't have enough depth or you wanted to add a little bit more contrast or something like that. They are also from the Lux vendor, not too expensive. I think they're like maybe 5K, 10K. So easy to pick up. And I'm sure there's, resellers out there selling them for a slight markup over what the Lux vendor sells them for. All right, a couple more here from the Crown Store pack that I got. Or actually, no, that one is from the Lux vendor. That flowering thorn succulent is from the Lux vendor. All the succulent plants are great for fish tanks as well. But this big one, this algae coral formation tree capped, I believe was in that Crown Store pack. Pearls, you can get those from fishing. Giant clam, which is going to close on it. Another coral piece. Oh, here's one of the Vardenfell ones. So this is one of the ones that you can get without crown or without spending any crowns. All right, so now the rest of the kelp stocks are going in. Okay, one of my favorite music boxes. This is a Crown Store box, but I like that it was before we had the little ship here, which I think I have. Yeah, so I have that little high isle caravel. You could use that. That is a craftable item. But before that was added to the game, this was like the only small little ship you could get, and I like the idea of having a sunken ship in the tank. And it's, you know, my music box for the main room here, which is cool. All right, Bubbles of Variation, that's a crown store item as well, really sells it. So if you have extra crowns, this is definitely one of the ones to buy. Obviously, it does mean that you have to have a pretty large tank though, which was one of the reasons why I ended up expanding this tank from the original design to this much larger format. And you can see it's even spilling out a little bit, but luckily most of that gets hidden by, you know, additional walls and the final moon gate here. Okay, barnacle back coral crab. I think this was a reward for watching a live stream at some point, but there are lots of crabs you can get as pets. And then I went ahead and added 2 nodes on top of this little algae formation so that he moves around. And then the idea is that when you're going through the portal, you're getting shrunk down into the tank, and that's where I put the much larger target dummy version of this coral crab. So you get to sort of shrink down and then fight this crab was the idea. One more piece here from the crown store pack, that jellyfish bloom. These were actually bugged. So funny. You use the crowns to buy the pack, and then this was bugged for a couple of months, and it just looked like a little purple dot. But again, what I love about this particular furnishing though is it doesn't take up one of your special collectible slots, but you still get sort of the same amount of movement and motion and atmosphere that you would from having another non-combat pet in the tank. And there was a point where I actually had more, but as I collected more of the companions that I wanted to include in the design, and for anyone who's seen my full tour of this house, you know that out in the courtyard I've got a little market square, and all the companions are wandering around out there. Well, some of them are wandering around out there. I've got a couple in here at the small council table. I would really love to be able to add the rest of my crabs here, like let's get the full crab collection going. Swamp jellies, these guys are great. Obviously not necessarily an aquatic animal, but they do fill in really nicely in place of a octopus or squid or something like that. Unfortunately, we don't really have any actual fish, I don't think, that you can collect as a non-combat pet, but those would be great if we could. All right, next up, minnow schools. Got 2 of those. Those are, I believe, a crown store item. They came in the big aquarium package, but also really good for sort of reinforcing the vibe here. And you'll notice that like everything kind of ends at this front line of the tank, like where I've tried to delineate that this is the end of the tank, right? We're not going to have any glass, so you gotta keep putting things there that stop there and sort of line up to reinforce this idea that there is something holding all this in. And one of the best tricks for that are these starfish, and you see them popping up right there. And so you can see they're meant to appear as if they're stuck to the front of the tank. And those you can get through fishing. If you don't want to fish, go check out the Guild Traders. All right, so we are just about done here. All of the stuff is back in the tank. We've got our foundation laid. We've got the box, the sides in. So all we need to do is add the front of the tank. And I use this moon gate, which is a fairly expensive achievement furnishing from Northern Elsewhere. I like the motion, and I think the little, sort of circular porthole helps reinforce this whole thing. So if you have the space to do a large aquarium like this is a great piece to pick up. I forget what achievement it's associated with. I will try and remember to throw it on screen for you guys. But that sort of finished it, right? The only difference from what we just went through and how I originally built this thing is that I did have the moon gate up in front to start. So I had a good sense of exactly where that line was, right? Where the front of the tank is, where that glass would be. And then I went through that same process of, building the foundation, enclosing things, covering things up with vines, adding some of the larger statement pieces to the tank, and then getting the non-combat pets in there, and adding some of the special effects furnishings and all of that. There you go. That is the final tank there, and that is the process that I went through. So we went through a lot of the furnishings here quickly as I was putting the tank back together. I'll throw a full list in a pinned comment below. I'll also try and add it to the video here so you have it on screen if you just want to pause the video and go through my furnishing list. But there are all sorts of furnishings that you could use to create your own version of this tank, right? There's lots of plants, bioluminescent plants. Obviously, there's other non-combat pets you could use. I think the main pieces to get a hold of, though, are all the vines, and then things that you can use to sort of create the enclosure of the tank, and then things that you can use to simulate that there is a glass front. So obviously the moon gate's great. But you got, I feel like those starfish are almost required to sort of trick your eye into thinking that there's a sheet of glass there. Also really love those waterfalls from Eleanor. And then definitely pick up a few of the anemones or other plants that have a little bit of movement to them. I think all of that really helps enhance the experience. So that is my mega tank for the Elder Scrolls Online. And let's go ahead and take a closer look here real quick, I think. So yeah, here it is from a distance. I actually really love how when you come into this house, obviously I put together this sort of hall of trophies, but then you've got this big tank at the back of the room, sort of anchoring everything. It gives the room a nice weight. It's a really cool statement piece, I think, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But of course, if you've watched some of my other housing videos, you know this isn't my first tank. This isn't, you know, my first attempt at something like this. I've done several. Captain Margot's house was one that I was real proud of. I thought that one turned out really well. So that's a good video to check out if you want to do something smaller. You can also check out my How to Build an Aquarium Tank, the first one that I did. It goes over a lot of the process as well, especially for a smaller tank. But yeah, let's go ahead and hop through the portal here, and we'll show you what it is like to get shrunken down inside the tank. And here we are. So, like I said, I was just out of furnishings. Otherwise, I would have done more to sort of enhance or try and trick your eye even more so here. But we got our big Target mud crab here. That is a crown store item. I think that one is exclusive to the pack, so you have to buy the full pack to get it. We've got some more of the kelp in here, and another bubbles of aeration. These sand drifts. I went ahead and added these basalt pillars. I thought they were pretty cool. Just some relatively cheap lighting from, I think it's the Undaunted Quartermaster. And then up above here, Celestial Nimbus. That was from a, I forget which one it was. It was one of the crown crates. So that's an annoying piece to try and collect. But if you have it, or you can get your hands on it, I think it does a good job of filling in for this undersea feeling that we've got here. And then there's one more thing here tucked up here. I don't know if I can even, yeah, there it is. The Azure, well, it's the Azure Plasm Cage hanging or something like that. Yeah, there you go. It doesn't quite, I can't quite hide it in there, but it's mostly hidden. That is the thing that's adding these like little ribbons of blue light. It's pretty good at giving you that undersea vibe, but it is a little bit buggy. If you have it in a room with too many other light sources, it will just stop working. It works all right in here, but sometimes you don't get this nice blue light, which is unfortunate. So yeah, that's the inside of the tank. All right, everybody, I think that's going to do it for this video. If you have any further questions about this particular aquarium or my design process, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to answer questions. If you're looking for a particular piece and can't find good documentation about it, also leave a comment. Most of the stuff I find on the ESO Fashion website, which has some great search tools, and it makes it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for. There's thousands of furnishings in the Elder Scrolls Online now, so sometimes it can be a little hard to find what you're looking for. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or other comments. Thank you all so much for checking out the video. As always, a big thank you to my supporters over on Patreon. If you would like to join them and get access to some extra content, including a recent preview video for my next ESO home design, be sure to click the link on screen now, head over and consider supporting the Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and call it there for today, guys. I'll be back again next week with another ESO video. Until then, safe travels in Tamriel.